And here we are. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Welcome to another WineShark Wednesday with your host, WineShark. How is everybody doing? Hope everybody's well. It's on and off raining up here in Dallas. I know a lot of my other Texas friends, especially from down south, are out there evacuating from Hurricane Laura. You always be safe out there. Get the hell away from that if you guys can. I got to say, if it's one benefit from working from home, you can pick up home and move wherever it is. So hope everybody's safe and everybody's doing well. But in the world of wine this week, what has been going on? Not a ton, I've got to say, although I spent more than my fair share of dealing with uh, legal stuff this week, which is dumb. But not legal in a bad way, legal in a good way, legal in the trying to figure out the legalese for the contest that I've been telling you guys about. So I've been looking for solutions and making sure I'm, abiding by all the appropriate I's dotted and T's crossed for both Facebook and Instagram. So a little bit more complicated than I first anticipated. I solved my technology problem so that I know how to track it, but now I've got to make sure that the legal steps are followed so that when I give you away some stuff, I should probably turn this on too. When I give away some stuff, you should probably receive it. So anyway, what was I saying? Blah, blah, blah. Hurricane Laura, everybody be safe. Get the hell out of there. And legalese and contract work. So I was probably very, very quiet now that you guys, now that I have my mic all the way over there off the corner of the screen. So anyway, what else has been new? I've been messing around with the disclosed location again, as you guys might notice. So I'm checking to see whether we've resolved the issue of focus pop in the background and that kind of thing. That way I can use the faux brick wall when I want to, or mess around with the green screen when I want to. Hello there to Miss Barbara and hello to Miss Donna. Great to see you guys again, by the way. We've got the appropriate background, whatever. We also removed the Spotted Menace's special cave. So he is no longer of cave needing sort. So we moved the chair into the room and liven things back up. So it's a nice afternoon. Hopefully the lighting will give us an appropriate ambiance today. So anyway, what else? Just some scheduling changes, minor things. Been looking at the content schedule for the regular YouTube content for the last while and just trying to figure out pacing and everything. And I think I'm going to go to an every other week schedule for content that is not on the Wednesday show, of course. So that just helps me spend a little bit more time working about to make sure that the quantity is good. The quality is good rather than the quantity, as I say, because I'm going to be on with you guys here once a week anyway. I'm using one of my topics to talk to you guys here on the live show, and I'm either going to work on segregating those out and separating them out with the actual regular topics. So speaking of which, the second part of Wine and Seltzer will be live tomorrow. So there's that. Anyhow, so today's topic was oddly phrased, but sometimes I've been musing a bit and had some interesting thoughts that I wanted to kind of share and talk with you guys about in the live format. So several unrelated articles kind of got me thinking about sommelier certifications, about expertise, and about the role of said experts in everybody's wine life. And I want to talk a little bit about those. I'm going to talk to you guys about what that means from a layman perspective, from a professional perspective, and where those two things kind of meet. We've talked about the art of wine a little bit before on the channel. We've talked about subjectivity. We've talked about, how I approach things. This is kind of a next evolution in that, just something that kind of goes along with the kind of the same pattern. So it's important enough to want to talk to you guys about, especially because I want you guys feedback from some things. So the first kind of thing that got me thinking was a while back, there was a podcast I was listening to on VinePair, and one of the brief outtakes from it was discussing about sommelier certification in general. Specifically from the Court of Master Sommeliers, for some of the controversies that they've had. But the important thing, the detail that I kind of got me thinking and overviewing was the concept of manufactured luxury or manufactured scarcity. So as some of you guys may know, There are something like 230, 240 master sommeliers that have been certified in the US since the founding of the court in 1973. That is always seems to be kind of a point of shock and awe for a lot of people. There was an entire documentary film, excellent film called Somm, that kind of documents five gentlemen and their quest to become master sommeliers. Kind of covers the process and this whole kind of culture that goes around it. And I am certified by the Court of Master Sommeliers and the Guild of the same, and I'm very proud to be so. However, one of those interesting things is that it brought up the question mark about what that certification means, and the fact that there are so few of them in the world. Is that necessarily a good thing? It is made out to be this very elite club, and it is. However, that may not be necessarily very useful for the wine world in certain ways, or certainly not for the average consumer. Specifically, at the core of what the court does is that they're a certifying and testing body, right? They basically say, we will give you this accreditation if you can pass this test. No different than any other birth certifying body that does the same sort of thing, no matter what exactly your particular expertise, area of specialty we're talking about, right? They're not an educational organization per se, meaning while the curriculum in the testing materials, there are guidelines about what you should be studying so that you might take the test. They are not a university or a teaching facility. They do not do classes and teach you how to become a sommelier. That is on you. That is on the certifee. It's on you, the sommelier, to figure those things out and to get that body of knowledge into your skull so that you might pass the test. The first pass rate for master sommeliers is abysmally low. If the overall rate is bad, the first pass rate is even worse. One of the things that the podcast folks who were talking about on VinePair were talking about was, why is that a good thing? If your job is to be a certifying body, shouldn't you have a good high pass rate? And they referred to a study that was done regarding comparative pass rates for other quote unquote prestigious jobs, things like, say, cardiac surgeon, an area where you probably wouldn't want somebody that didn't pass their test. Although, not having a master sommelier check your wine might be a faux pas. Not going to leave you dead on the table. But anyway, I don't know, man. You might take your Chateau Petrus very seriously. I don't know. But anyway, the point is that I'm trying to get to is that that's not a very good sign, and it seems like there's some manufactured luxury there, that they're making it harder than it has to be, or rather, they're not doing a good job of communicating what it is that you're supposed to be learning. Now, obviously, there's something to be said for not knowing what the test is like the first time, and it'd be interesting to see what the comparative second time pass rate is. You take it the first time, you fail, you come back and you come back and manage it. But even then, the number of it's up from Tennessee. We have Mr. Jay Nashty. So anyway, we're talking about sommelier certifications, etc. But transparency in that academia, what it is that they're testing you for, is a very interesting concept. And don't get me wrong, being a master sommelier is something that's not only highly prestigious, but these guys work their asses off and are very, very good at what they do. They have not only talent, but they have the skill, the time, and the practice to put it into it. They've got practical experience in the service world. It's not something that I think is to be taken lightly. On the flip side, what I'm saying is, why aren't there more of us? People asked me a lot when I first got certified whether I was going to try and be a master. And this was actually before the movie and the documentary came out. And my answer was no, because at the time I was only working as sommelier part-time. I'm only doing it kind of as a passion project. It was something I really wanted to do in my later years, but it wasn't there yet. I wasn't working on the floor as a waiter, working on the floor as a somm. Wasn't in a wine program or running a wine store. Therefore, I didn't really have access to some of the things I needed. I knew I needed to take it to the next level. Then the more I thought about it, after being certified and working through the type of jobs and stuff that I have been doing, appealing to more of my sense of as an educator rather than as a floor sommelier, and looking at what people do with their master sommelier certification after they become that, I also realized that my passion lies in helping get people into wine, to understand wine, and to fall in love with wine. It's always been my joke, because I'm like, I'm not here to sell you wine, I'm here to make you fall in love with it. And so that being said, this kind of dovetailed into podcast number two. This was basically talking about the Somm bubble, the amount of, but what we had that's existed for kind of a while since the documentary. We've got a lot of interested parties in people becoming sommeliers, but not enough fundamental jobs where all you do is sommelier work. Therefore, there's been kind of a glut in the marketplace, and in fact, to even a point where people were talking about this, just becoming a somm at whatever level. Where is it something just for the hobbyist, for somebody who's just into wine, or where is it something that's a professional certification for people that need it to do work within the service industry? So that's a very interesting take, because to me, being trendy kind of has its downside in the sense that it does, if it's just something that anybody can get because they collect wine and they want to become a somm, then maybe the certification isn't necessarily doing what it's supposed to be doing, functioning on the service level. That, by the way, is a primary difference between becoming a certified sommelier and just a basic somm. You're not allowed to call yourself a sommelier when you just pass the basic course, simply because you've taken a test, you've identified some wine knowledge, and you may have a good grasp of how to make, bottle, sell, and what the history of wine is, but you're not necessarily versed in the practical application of tasting and serviceware and all the other ceremonies slash etiquette that goes along with presenting, storing, and being a servant in the world of wine. So that secondary purpose is come along and starting to see kind of a backlash. Not only that, with the tough times that we've been seeing in 2020 with COVID and everything else, there's been a huge retreat from a lot of people who were kind of, for restaurants specifically, that it kind of overemployed. They basically wanted to have a somm on staff because it was a cool thing to have, but maybe they don't have enough money to get in their budget to pay a somm as just a somm. So that's one of the things where being a multi-tool, being a multitasker, is really kind of important. So you need to be a multidisciplinary employee, right? The idea that you only do work as a sommelier is maybe not such a cool thing. Well, for instance, in my own job, I don't think I could do this work if somm work was all I was interested in or wanted to do. Yes, I have a service industry background that extended far before I was a sommelier, both front of the house and back of the house. A lot of the work that I do requires both of those things, specifically a lot of the food and wine pairing classes that I teach. I'm the cook as well. So I do all of that sort of thing that I needed to have that as a route before my certification kicked in. But even then, I had a professional career that helps me understand how to use the tools of online marketing, get this message out, produce videos, do all kinds of other things. Now, this is a shout out to all small business people, for that matter. I mean, anybody who's a small business owner is very, very likely wearing more than 9 hats. You're going to pick up and do a lot of the business aspects that need to be done, and you're not going to hire somebody specifically for each one of those, even though any one of them might have a professional description when you go up the chain to larger companies. So I'm not saying that all of us or many folks don't do that, but in the restaurant industry or in the service industry, when we think about what a sommelier does, he's going to have to, that's probably going to be one of the hats you need to wear. You might be the somm, the bartender, and their beverage manager. You might also, you might be the back of the house guy running the kitchen and also helping with the wine program to make sure the servers are getting the things that match with the menu. But you can't just be a somm necessarily in a world where, especially at the bottom end of the scale, we're not talking about running in 3-star Michelin restaurants here. So anyway, that kind of dovetails into the final part, which is my own competitive analysis of my niche and role here online, kind of what my relationship is to you guys, to the real world, and all kind of things in between. One of the guys that I'm a fan from as a small business person, the guy named Mike Michalowicz, and took a webinar from him on a process called serve selling. And serve selling is basically the idea of being absolutely convinced that the product that you have to sell is something that your customers need, that your customers need. Now, not everybody necessarily needs, but your customers, that you provide something indispensable. And I think that I genuinely believe that serving you guys, my customers, about helping you in your wine journey, educating you in your wine life, helping you make and enjoy those sorts of wine things is my passion, my calling, and something that I can do in my own particular way that nobody else can do. There's lots of other people out here in the wine world, lots of other wine personalities, wine educators, folks that are in the industry. all of which have their own particular niche. Each one of them I look to as well, to even learn things from a peer-to-peer way. So this is not to say that I'm the only one to do this, but more importantly, I certainly believe that my take, my experience, my pool, and my focus and passion are something that you guys specifically can benefit from. That you guys, and the more the audience grows, that we can gain and learn that. So, um, like others in the business, it's a personal niche and it's where you fall into it. And not all business is productive business. That's one of the things that you learn in serve selling, is that you've got to be willing to cut yourself of customers that are not necessarily good for your business, not that aren't ideally suited for you. Luckily, I don't have that problem yet. I've been working as a side hustle for a long time, and when I started this full time this year, but I don't have anybody that that is running around as high drag customers, if you will. But the important part about this, the WineShark takes, the thing that I wanted to express to you all, and that is, number one, a guy. I want you guys to have that feeling that when you're one of whether you've been a customer of mine, whether you're just somebody who watches videos, whether you're somebody who's reached out to me on Facebook or in personal life, whatever the case is, that a sommelier is that somebody to ask those questions to when you have wine queries, to help you out and remove that burden and that barrier that wine, as part of its luxury branding over the last 200 years or so, has done itself a disservice. It's that constant difference we talk about between being the everyman's drink and being just the drink of kings kind of thing. And the fact that wine can be daunting is something that I don't like. As I say very often, I can teach you everything you need to know in an hour, but it's going to take you the rest of your life to figure the rest of this stuff out. It's a very deep and complicated topic, but the basic parts are really easy. When you get to that complicated part, I want to be here for you and help you through that. So as your somm, how can I serve you better? What are the things that you need in the wine world? What wine needs do you have that I can assist you with? Because I think that the way that I approach things, the way we connect with each other, that's something that's going to be important over the long run. It's going to help not only myself grow, but it's going to help this business grow. And hopefully it's going to put a particular mark on the wine world that most of us have, I think, are really living in, that we're not living in that aggrandized luxury world, despite the fact that we support that we aspire to it. I'm not saying we shouldn't enjoy those nice things, but the fact is, let's talk about the stuff that we use and do on a much more frequent basis, and let's Pareto principle that. There's an 80-20 that goes along with how much of that wine are you drinking is in a particular class. So the other part of how can I help you with your wine is, what do you need in your wine world other than just more of it? What are the things that you guys think about when you guys have issues with wine, trouble with wine, finding it, looking for it, whatever the case may be? I don't know. I need to know from you guys individually what that is. So getting through this pandemic has also been no joke on our anxiety, our social isolation, and our depression. We've heard there's a lot of jokes running around the internet, people talking about how much drinking is up, and so all of our solutions for this absolutely awful example of a year. But the reality is, I want to make sure that you guys understand we don't drink to cope, but call a somm and we'll cope together. We'll help you work through those things and enjoy each other's conversations and company, and how we can connect, at least from a wine perspective online. While we may not be able to actually have a glass that goes clink together, we can certainly share one in that virtual space, and I hope you guys will join me for that. So anyway, hashtag end rant, a long and weird kind of insight moment, but it's been one of those weeks where a lot of the stuff that I'm looking at, I've got some topics and been working on what's been coming up, and basically planning out the rest of the year, and realizing that some of the things that we're going to end up talking about are going to revolve around what you guys need. So don't hesitate to reach out, drop me that line on Facebook, Instagram, shoot me an email, drop a comment on YouTube, get that conversation and community going, because I guarantee you're going to find somebody like-minded here. So Tina, how about hashtag end rant? That's right. Oh, Tina, we're going to have a talk, you and I, because we're going to have a talk about clean wine next week. So we're going to call you out. And Mark, hello from California. Well, I hope you guys are also safe out there as well. We're having hurricanes and rain. You guys are having wildfires. Locusts, et cetera, et cetera. There's a biblicality in here somewhere to have fun at my expense. But anyway, I hope everybody is doing well and doing safe on this Wednesday. So, any other questions you guys have got from, for they said it's an open Q&A while I'm sitting here blathering on. Don't hesitate to jump in with a question or ask something I can grab there. Dave and Mary from Minnesota. Welcome. What kind of disaster are you guys having? I'm sure you guys have got one of your own. I have no idea what it is, but my news here is only fairly local right now. So anyhow, have you ever tried Decadencia from Fiesta Winery, a dessert wine? No. Where is Fiesta Winery there, JN? I'm certainly curious if it's. It's Fiesta sounds like there's somebody here in the States, probably New Mexico, maybe. Am I guessing right here? I don't know. But I'll wait for your reply. But I'm very interested, especially from a dessert wine perspective. Dessert wine is something that I find is it gets out into the world in a lot of places that you wouldn't expect wine. Just a hill country. Oh, down in Texas. Oh, fair enough. I'd be interested to try, especially I have not tried any dessert glass wines from Texas. The only one that I had a near brush by with was a Blanc du Bois from Hake Winery that I really enjoyed. That just got bought up and is doing some new work. I hope they are doing well in the hurricane. They're down there in Galveston. But what kind of grape is it made from? It'd be an interesting thing too. When we say dessert wines, we've got lots of classes of that. So there is this opportunity when it comes to that, whether it's white wines or red wines, and the types of wines that are go from. For instance, port style wines, which are dessert class wines, aren't necessarily it's a port style. It can't be called port per se, but port style wines are pretty common throughout the U.S. And we get things like Zinfandel ports, etc. White wines, while we don't do Sauterne style wines with Sauvignon Blanc and things like that very often, ice vines and stuff from Rieslings down here in Texas, I'd be interested to see how they're making a dessert wine, whether they're doing something like leaving the grapes on long enough to do botrytization, like the Sauterne process uses, or whether they're doing something else to make it that, or they just end up with very high sugar levels. I'd be very curious. So Fredericksburg area. Yeah, so I'm very familiar with the area, but the weird part is I haven't had a lot of good experience going down and checking out some of the wineries since I moved to North Texas back in 2003. I lived in the Hill Country back when I was in high school, but that was long before I was into my wine as a true habit. So there's one of the things that's on the planning list for when the world gets a little bit more stable is working with some of my wine loving friends here in Texas. We're going to go poke around some areas and try and put a Texas winery tour together. Again, one of the things that Texas has not going for it is we have our large geography as kind of a fit. It's kind of a difficult thing. While Fred, I think the Hill Country is far and away the area we're going to likely to be. Sadly, a lot of the wines that I like go everywhere from Galveston to Lubbock, and frankly, that's not a trip we're taking in 2 days. I don't care how fun you are in the van; it's really not that thing. So, well, all right. So let's see. Thunder and lightning, but no rains here in West Fort Worth. It's been off and on. I mean, we've got like a big old gray clouds outside right now. We got a brief little classic thunderstorm rain came down this afternoon that made the dogs annoyed because they couldn't go out when they wanted to. But other than that, it's been fine. Horseshoe Bend Cellars here in Wichita Falls has a Kirsch. Interesting. Now, is it a Kirsch? I wonder if it's a Kirsch like a Kirschwasser. So Kirsch is, I want to say German for cherry, but Kirschwasser is a key implement in. I know the Swiss use it. You have to have. It's one of the things you must have as far as your Swiss dessert world is concerned. Also, a major part of making fondue. So. You're gonna do it right. Yeah, it's cherry, not grape. So it's cherry, but so it's wine-ish made from cherries, which we don't call it wine because we're pedantic like that around here. But I get you. Yeah, so it's made from cherries, and so then that's accurate. Kirschwasser from Switzerland, by the way, is a slightly cherry flavored schnapps. Okay, so it's not a wine class thing at all. Don't be confused by my lack of specificity there. Let me be on point. I believe that a style of schnapps that is cherry flavoring, and it's quite good. So that means it's time now for the grocery store grab. We're at a good almost halfway point here, so that'd be nice. We're into Everclear. Oh boy. See now, Jan, that's a whole nother level of white lightning. Now I may or may not have looked into buying a still this week. And go ahead, ask me why. Actually, it's one of those strange rabbit holes that I went down after the Wine and Cheese show on Friday. So, short version of the story, there's a recipe called risotto a cacio pepe made by Massimo Bottura, and it was his solution to the Parmigiano Reggiano problem they had back in the Modena earthquakes, I think in 2012. Anyway, it's this fantastic recipe, and it involves peppers in several different ways. One of the things in his official recipe that you do is you actually take like 5 different types of peppercorns and you soak them in water, and then you distill that essence of pepper, and you use that to help enhance the pepper flavor as you're about to present the dish. Needless to say, I don't actually happen to have a rotary distiller at my disposal. I mean, I've got a lot of kitchen gadgets, but I don't have a rotary distiller. But then I looked into just basic distilling, and I'm like, there's got to be something. Amazon's got everything. And the first results were something very lab-like, scientific, 1,000-liter distillation process, and had obviously had some sort of look for it for that purpose. But that quickly bled over into the world of actual stills, which aren't really that expensive. Now, I started reading some literature and slash reviews, and hadn't got quite down the YouTube rabbit hole yet. This was all just written reviews so far. But the judgingness of the effectiveness of some of these inexpensive rigs is questionable. But then, I mean, I could not only extract the oils from my peppercorns, but I could also make white lightning. And, that may or may not be a good idea. But anyway, WineShark breaks out into moonshine. It's a whole different level of whatever right there. So anyway, back on topic, the grocery store grab. Every week, we like to talk about the premise of the grocery store grab is to get the best value per dollar for wines that are found at non-specialty and non-big box retailers. What this means is not everybody has the opportunity to shop at a place like Total Wine, Siegel, Specs, things like that. Or you may not have an opportunity to shop at a very boutique wine store. Some of us also, for convenience, shop at the grocery store when we shop for our wine. Those two things are usually purchased together. Well, those particular locations tend to have a very specific retail landscape. And we're here to make sure that you get that best value for dollar and don't end up getting ripped off by overpriced wines or that are trying to be mass market wines that are trying to be overpriced. There we go. Put it that way. So we choose these wines without prior research. We do basically label focus only. And today's feature did definitely have a very interesting label, so I must say. We have Field Trip. And if it's got what it says in the bottle, there are mammoths in this wine, which could be really cool. But this is the Field Trip Red Blend, Columbia Valley, Washington State. Front of the label, as we talk about label focus, is your attention grabber. It's your advertising space. I really don't care what you do on the front of your label. So long as the back label has the information I need as a consumer, the front of the label is yours to command. There are usually several things that are going to be almost always on the front of the label so they catch your attention. And that is their brand name and the grape and or region it's from, depending on whether they're in Old World or New World. But fact is, this had an interestingly simplistic brand. B, it had a mammoth on it, which caught my attention. And C, it's also from Columbia Valley in Washington State. One of the things I'm on a personal kind of exploration right now is to focus some of my attentions and to become more intimately familiar with Washington State wines. For my particular favorites palette, when we ask about the top 5 desert island, if I could only drink these wines ever again kind of wines, Columbia Valley and Washington State in general, the Yakima Valley on the other side of the mountains are some great examples of some of the grapes that I love a lot. Cabernet Sauvignons, Merlots, Syrahs, all kinds of stuff. So this is a place that I want to explore. So I was like, all right. I went and checked out the label, and we are going to talk about exactly what we've got here. So it basically said on the front, it's given us it's Field Trip, it's its brand. It says a red wine blend. Great, cool. What kind of blends are we talking about here? This is a 2015, so it actually has some teeth underneath it here. But that, by the way, not necessarily a good thing from a grocery store level wine. Assuming it hasn't been sitting in that grocery store, because I've never seen this wine before, means it probably just shipped out to them. It's just been sitting in somebody's somewhere. So, Field Trip Red Wine Blend. Back of the back of the label. Here are the key things we're looking for. We want to know what's in the bottle. If it's a variety, like this one is, and it's blended, what percentage and what types of grapes are something we're looking for. We want to know where the grapes are grown. Well, we already talked about that. We got it on the front of the label there, Columbia Valley, Washington. Good. Specific, not just Washington, but more specific generally means the better the wine that you're going to get, or at least the more specific wine you're going to get. Then we're looking on the back of the label. We're looking for what the wine tastes like. We're approaching this not necessarily like a sommelier like myself, but as the average layman just looking for good wine. So I want flavor words on my wine label. I want specific pairings for food rather than general ones if you're going to do so. And then, of course, if there's any information we want to look at about who they are or who's behind the label, that's always some interesting kind of information if you like to do wine sleuthing, as in who owns this label, not just the people on the front. So on the back here, Columbia Valley, Washington State, and this is Washington. You said Columbia Valley, Washington State's premier wine growing region. Hot days are followed by cool nights, which makes for a long, even growing season and flavor fruit-forward wines. Now, paragraph 1 is almost always their marketing spiel, and there it was. It's telling you why Columbia Valley is fun and awesome for wine. And those, of course, these are good things to know. But again, I'm a layman. I'm like, yeah, that's nice. Tell me about what's in the bottle. So here on the bottom, though, their second paragraph really sells the wine pretty well. It's a perfect region for this red blend where enticing aromas of mild oak, cherries, blackberries, and clove lead to a rich palate marked with notes of vanilla, deep black fruit, and spice. All right. Not wildly specific on someone, but that's a pretty good profile of what it is that I'm aiming for. Now, professional Somm here going, oh, well, yeah, by the way, a lot of those words are they're kind of generic. I mean, mild oak. Okay, you used oak in your aging. That's cool. Cherries and blackberries. I like that. Although there's there's a mix in the fruit range just a little bit. Clove. Very cool. Like that specific word that tells us something about that, right? And then we've talked about notes of vanilla, probably coming from the oak, but deep black fruit. Now we've gone into a less specific, and spice. Well, what kind of spice is what I'd be interested in knowing. But still, from a label perspective, from the items that I think that are important for you to just pick up this up and go, what does this taste like? Am I getting a good value? They've given you a pretty, the only thing they're missing here, so they can't get an A because they didn't give me anything to go with food. But this is a solid B+, because everything else I'm looking for, actually, no, I've got to go down to a B, because what I'm not looking, what they don't have here is it's a red blend. Cool. But a red blend of what? One of the things that's become very popular, and I spoke about this in an earlier show, is that red blends have become, in the last 3-5 years, have become much more accepted. People are finally understanding that blend is not a 4-letter word, and that it's okay to not just have one type of grape in the glass. American drinkers have been so convinced that one grape, monovarietal, what's labeled on the label has to be the thing, that we're finally coming around to this idea. That's awesome. On the bad side of it, however, is that red blends that don't tell us what's in it don't help us grow as a wine drinker, because we want to know what types of grapes we might like or how they're blended together and in what percentages, so that we can try and find either more grapes or more wines like that, or try out different combinations to see what we like. So if this, let's say, is and by the way, we're gonna take some sommelier guesses here in just a minute. If it's a particular blend, I would like them to show us those percentages on the label. Transparency is always a good thing in labeling, and I'm a big fan of such. So again, this is about a B on the label simply because it missed the red blend opportunity, and it didn't say, hey, you should try this with, say, a bratwurst with horseradish and a lima bean. I haven't tasted it yet, so I don't know I don't know what we're going to pair with it, but red blends, generally speaking, grilled foods, always good. So, all right. Color-wise, it's looking like a very solid garnet kind of color. So we've got a nice, fairly rich red, bold red wine on our hands. It's not wildly extracted so that it is opaque. So that means it's tending, I think, a little towards the lighter end of the grapes we're choosing. My bets right now on it's a Merlot-based blend, possibly with a big lump of cab in here. On the nose, it definitely kicks off with its black fruit. Very iconic in that cherry blackberry range, and there's a little bit of Man, I want to say there's a minerality to it. I think that there's that also that clove and spice note very much comes across. We get that little hint of oak, a little bit of charred wood, and a nice bit of that. I mean, when have you ever had a clove straight crush? That really kind of sharpness that they bring from as a spice to any dish. It's very much. I think they hit that one pretty well on the nose. No pun intended. But I really like that. That's very well done. Yeah, really nice. It said fruit forward, right? Does it not overcoming a little bit hot from the alcohol percentage? I'm going to guess this is probably around the 14% range, but we'll check that here in a minute. Okay, well, it's a little on the grippy side. The tannins feel a little bit overpresented, but not by much. They quickly carry that fruit flavor all around the mouth. Definitely has tannic grip. If you're not a person who's into that sensation of the pores being cut off, of the mouth feeling, like the mouth feeling that has that grab all around your mouth, probably not a big good choice for you. But if you do like a bit of astringency and you like a wine that stands up and says hello, it's got that. However, it is not a big Cabernet hammer, or even I would say like in the Zinfandel range, where it's got that really big solid fruit. It tastes to me a little bit more like it's got that strong Merlot type influence from there that kind of rounds things out. I'd be very interested when I peel this apart. We'll go see if we can find exactly what type of grapes they used. But yeah, I mean, overall, I mean, nice big pull, all the way around the mouth. Like I said, it's just got that nice solid feel. Blackberry fruit definitely coming through. I'm not catching that little vanilla hint that I said. The oak kind of fades away once you actually get the fruit in the mouth. It's got that nice, powerful grip to it. But overall, really solid drink, and certainly to do no harm. It's not elegant by any means. It doesn't really have much going on other than that kind of one or two dimensions. So not a lot of complication here, but that's okay. We're not exactly looking for it to be. It's not claiming to be, some multi-layered Chateauneuf de Pape or anything like that. It's just a particular red wine blend. Price points on this, by the way, $21 before the club price. So when you're looking at the grocery store levels, a lot of our grocery stores here in Texas tend to have a membership card, and we'll give you a discount. I've spoken about this before. Big gaps in those numbers can generally mean that they're trying to pretend their wine is better than it is. This is $21 list and $15 actual retail price for the card, which is a much more reasonable price. That puts this in that $15 range. I'd say this is a solid $15 wine. It's not gonna make me stop and say, oh my God, I've got to keep this in my cellar. But again, it's not a turn away at the door wine either. So we usually ask 3 tasting note questions rather than doing, kind of a whole professional grid on it. Is it well executed? Is it on style? And is it worth the price tag? Are 3 kind of common questions I think people really want to know. Is it well executed? Well, yeah. I mean, I think there's not particularly any fraud. There's any. It's only a 2%. Only a 2%. Now, is that, Mom? I mean, you need to check this, by the by. Make sure that this is the correct. Make sure it's the correct field trip, like the one with the mammoth on it, because I found another field trip wine, which is a very different blend. So if it is indeed, then their Cab Sauv is very much on the light side. So anyway, is it well executed? Yeah, there's no flaws to this wine. I think this wine is well put together. It is solid. It doesn't taste like they're cutting corners. It tastes like you're getting the value you want. Is it on style? That's really hard to say. This is a question when with red blends, that depends on what your style is. This is kind of like free form jazz. So this is a weird question when it comes to blends. So we can't really, I kind of just put that as an NA. But is it worth the price tag for $15? Yeah, like I said, I think this tastes like about a $15 bottle of wine. It's not gonna win any of my personal go get it, but it might be totally up your alley. Okay, so both sides are saying, by the way, this is a 2015 vintage, but that unlikely that they changed it that much. If it's 97 Cab and only 2% Merlot, that, by the way, I'm surprised that would be their red blend, because if it's 97% Cabernet Sauvignon, that's their Cabernet Sauvignon. Okay, so blending Yeah, so that's 93 cab, 2, 3 Merlot. See, even that is very, very, very small blending numbers, right? Usually, when you call it a red blend, you're usually looking at one of the grapes being more like a 75, 85%. Remember, legally in most of the U.S. and California, 75% or more of one grape is allowed to be used as a monovarietal name. Number two, I think it's in Oregon, you have to have that up at 85%. I'm not sure about Washington State. But if it's so much, if it's 97, 98, 93% cab, I'm very curious to know why they labeled it a red blend then, other than to put their name in the red blend market. Because a lot of cabs that are labeled cabs have similar numbers to what was going on in the chat there. In other words, it's 2% Merlot, a couple percent Petit Verdot, you name it. Those small percentages are absolutely in the cab makers. And then Tina is saying it's a Shiraz Cab Merlot. Now that I would buy a little bit more. So that's a very interesting data points. But again, this is why we do this afterwards, not before. Because again, in the sphere of the grocery store, you don't know. If they're not labels not telling you, I don't expect you to go grab Vivino on your phone and look it up. I mean, Vivino does. But frankly, if you're going to make your own judgments and choices, if you're going to feel informed and not have that anxiety, that's what I'm hoping for. But it doesn't give percentage. Okay, so that's an interesting. The weird part is my palate tells me that the latter is true. But if we got two people that are saying that that's their 2015 blend, and they're calling it such from the Mammoth peoples, from Field Drip, then rock on. Because this is from, by the way, that's a question we didn't ask earlier. Been in a bottle by Field Trip Wine Cellars in Groton, Sonoma, California. So Sonoma-based winery, Washington, Columbia Valley grapes. Interessant, says your WineShark. What are you hiding? Nothing. We just live down here. I don't know. They like paying higher taxes? Who knows? I hope they're doing well, though. Right now, Sonoma is significantly on fire for those of you who are not up in the Northern California area. That is a sad but reality thing going on there. That harvest is actually currently going on in both Lake County, Sonoma County, and I believe they're starting up in Napa here pretty soon. Steel Wines, for instance, pulled a couple thousand pounds of Sauvignon Blanc grapes off the vines today. But in the middle of the summer, middle of the heat, middle of the smoke, those guys are out there getting those grapes off the vines as fast as they can, get them off ripe. So I definitely want to worry about smoke influence on those grapes when it comes down to it. I would be interested to see what the long-term effects are. In fact, actually, one of the things I've been meaning to reach out to after a discussion we had last week was wanting to actually call some of my winemakers and find out whether they do have impacts from those things. In other words, environmental air smoke, does it affect final quality of wine in those years? We've talked about smoked wines, this wines, and other wines, but I'd certainly love to hear it from some of my professionals. So, from the reviews, tired of seeing California wine companies go to Washington and making wine, claiming this wine is done in the style of Washington winemaking. Oh, so that's one of those disgruntled Washington people. Dude, get over yourself. If your grapes are for sale, your grapes are for sale. They didn't claim to be, this is what, if that's where the grapes are from, that's where it's from. So, I'm afraid that those guys are apparently got a chip and fish and the whole thing on shoulders. They're like, no, you got to be from here, be local. I mean, I admit there are stylistic differences in the way that people make choices. Every winemaker has them. Now, if it's not about your terroir solely and your microclimate solely, then it's about how you as a winemaker make choices in your wine production. So this commenter apparently is making the comment that the style of Washington. Well, please do tell me what that style is, because I don't think that Washington winemakers have a united front on what those things are. I think they come in very, very different classes and very, very different from one side to the other. So is the Yakima Valley same as Columbia Valley? Those guys have the same approach. How about Chateau Saint Michel versus Brown? They have the same approach to making wine? I don't think so. The wine states very different, both on even if they've got the same grapes from the same regions. So that's why we don't trust those guys from reviews. Got to trust your guts. Be all right. But still, not a bad wine. Aha! 89 Cab, 7 Syrah, 2 Merlot, 2 Petit Verdot. Okay, now we're going down underneath the 90% mark, but still strong in Cab. But that Syrah Merlot very much peaks up, I think, where we're getting that not big, deep, rich note. So I need a real wine reviewer. Well, that's exactly. It's why you need a Somm in your life. And in fact, actually, we had when I made a comment to my friend over at the Grill and Grape on Instagram, I'm a Somm buddy. I'm a Somm buddy because we talked about whether you wanted a Somm or a wine buddy. The answer is Somm buddy. Both things, multi-purpose. Just like I said before, you got to be able to do both things in the industry. So this wine, by the way, was acquired at my local Tom Thumb. That is where I do my grocery shopping. So that is where this is from. For those of you that are out there seeking it. And again, go give it a go. Washington State is going to be something you're going to be seeing as much as I can work it into my schedule. Something interesting that has, it's Somm Buddy, Buddy, Tina. So it's like both. It's even better. Not just Somm Body, Somm Buddy. I mean, I'm going to put that on my name tag or something once I start wearing a name tag or whatever. But anyway, something interesting that I've discovered because of frankly, because of the pace and the things that we're doing. One of the features that is probably going to change up in Patreon is that I talked about, a WineShark kind of what I'm drinking. Well, due to the pace of the shows that I'm doing and things like that, I mean, I'm not drinking many wines outside of the purpose of the show. Right. So if I've got, usually between 3 to 4 bottles of wine a week that I am tasting for the purpose of the show, for the grocery store grab, for Wine Styles, for Wine Plus, it means that I'm generally not going outside that limit very much. So I have been quiet on the Patreon front a little bit about what I'm drinking because, well, all this I'm drinking. So actually for the Patreon front, I need to throw in those lists and I will put in my notes as to what I'm drinking so that you guys get some value out of that. Because now, of course, not everybody comes to the grocery store grab. Not everybody comes to the wine style shows. They come to the Friday tastings. So I will try and summarize that. I had attempted to use it for something that was separate and exclusive. But it turns out I'm not up for putting down 5 bottles of wine a week. I mean, I am, but I'm not alone, so that's not the problem. So anyway, so let's see. Where are we? What time is it? 47 after. We're doing just fine. We're doing just fine. So other Q&A questions. So Mr. Joe Nash is down in Fredericksburg area, Tennessee. What are you doing out in Tennessee, Joe? Jesus Lord. And why? I mean, you're about to get hit by a hurricane when it takes a sharp right turn at Arkansas. It's going to be weird. I'm looking at the weather today and just wondering, how Arkansas decided to be the one that was going to be there, because we were worried a little bit about Dallas having a late storm arrival, but we're lucky enough that it looks like we dodged a bullet this time. Anyway, so I'll wait for you guys to start your questions, but let's talk about coming soon. Hard Seltzer Part 2 tomorrow. Hard Seltzer for the wine drinker. The White Claw versus wine. So this is the second portion of that show, that video, where talk a little bit about wine spritzers and then going into the lighter end of the wine world outside of the initial choices that I had. So basically in episode 1, we just kind of talked about some really easy early entry level wines that I think are perfect for people that are into either lightly sweet and or that whole easy to drink, low alcohol by volume, approachable level of wine. In part 2, we talk about making your own wine spritzers and how that helps full-bodied wines come down a notch to be more approachable, but then also going through to just the bottom end of light-bodied wines where you should kind of start and explore. So that's kind of cool. Then we've got no flooding on top of a mountain. Well, that's good. I mean, that's you're at least safer that way. That's awesome. So then we've got upcoming shows on Friday. So Friday evenings, of course, we do either our Wine Styles or Wine Plus shows, online virtual tasting. You get your wines either from wine.com or from Total Wine, and join us in a live Zoom chat where we do live tasting. So instead of watching me drink wine, we can all drink wine together and the same wines at the same time. How cool is that? This week, it's light white wines, and that's going to be kind of a fun end of summer thing, and especially a couple of wines that You may not. They're also a little bit fringy, not quite on the far crazy edge there, but we're going to be doing Tokai Frumint, which is a dry style of Hungarian white, and Vermentino from Italy, which is again not it should be more popular than it is. I wish more people had access to it, but it's a great light white wine. And then some Albarino from Spain. So nice, fun, eclectic, not your everyday white wines, especially on the lighter side of things, which should be a lot of fun. Then on the Cabernet Franc show, cheese show, and it's actually so then the rest of September, we've got Summer Sunset, which will be the closer out for that. That'll be a wine plus show where we have wine and food together, which is a lot of fun. We're going to be doing Diatom Chardonnay from Santa Barbara, amazing area. And then we're going to be doing, what else we got? Oh, and we got Whispering Angel Rosé for those that have always wanted to try. Very popular rosé. Go check that out. Then we got Cabernet Franc show, 15 to 30. That's going to be amazing. One of my favorite grapes. And some big fun. We're going to have big fun styles, small fun styles, and Argentinian style. We're going to check out how Argentina is entering into the Cabernet Franc world as a monovarietal. They're not just the Mendoza, not just for Malbec anymore. Then we've got cheese part 4. This, by the way, is going to be the first we talked about this. We're going to move it to a Saturday show. So it'll be Saturday, the 19th of September. We're going to do wine and cheese part 4, where we're talking about milk. We're going to talk about 4 different types of milk that go into making cheeses, and each cheese will be 4 of the 4 cheeses, 4 different milks, 2 different wines, all kinds of fun. And then we will close out September with Italiano Classico. We're going to have 3 of my favorite of the probably, I would say, top 5 to 6 Italian wines you kind of need to know. Italy, as a personal wine somm experience and wine experience, is probably one of those daunting areas when it came to my wine education, and I would probably say is an ongoing challenge too. The Italians, of course, have a very, very long wine history, and they're also fiercely independent from their neighbors. And I mean, that's part of the idea being the concept of modern Italy didn't exist until after the Napoleonic Wars. So the idea that things were different in the Veneto as opposed to in Tuscany makes sense if you understand their history. But it's also hilarious to me how even within a specific zone, you can have 2 different towns in different parts of a province that basically call the exact same grape 2 different damn names and cannot agree on what it should be called, which makes wine study and amphilography even that much more difficult. So set that aside. We're going to learn about Ripasso. We're going to learn about Ripasso, process Valpolicella. We're going to try a little bit of Soave because you guys need that white wine in your life. And we're going to kick off with the absolutely iconic and has to have it, what everybody thinks when they think of Italian wine, Chianti. Fava beans and human liver not included. So that's going to be a lot of fun show. I definitely encourage you guys to do. I think that's one of the first all regional shows that we've done so far this year. While I do a lot of regional shows out at Scarborough Renaissance Festival, this is one where we're actually starting to take that topic in. By the way, all of these wine topics were thrown up. I threw up a bunch of them on Patreon, and our Patrons were the one that helps choose the order in which these events happen. So you guys want a little bit of voice in there. If you guys want to express your opinion and figure out what order of wines or give me suggestions on what type of wine style shows you'd like to see, I am always open to your suggestions. As I said, how can I better serve you? That's by letting the groups vote, it helps me understand and prioritize. I threw up a lot of different wine styles this time, and so much to the point where with some of the mandatory ones, the have-to-haves during the holiday seasons, we're pretty close to almost being through the end of the year with all of our topics. I don't think I figured out the last couple of weeks of December, but we'll see. I think the only 2 that missed the cut so far were sweet white dessert wines haven't hit the table yet, and the champagne. So those were the 2 lowest ranked of the 10 that I threw up. So they're not in this rotation just yet. So, but everything else is. And so tickets for all of those are already on sale. So it's all well and good. You will start seeing October sales will go up after Friday's show goes down. I'm going to start putting those up, and basically, so they should come out on Mondays for the rest of the year. We should basically see them start. Ticket sales will go on. It'll announce on Facebook. You guys will be able to buy it. Whole thing kind of rotates through. And next, WineShark Wednesday. So a little preview about what's going to happen next week, which we rarely do because sometimes I don't have good ideas in enough time ahead of time. So story of my life. But we're going to talk about the clean wine movement, and we're going to have some down-to-earth real talk. We talked about had a sugar rant not too long ago, but we're going to have a serious chit-chat about some wine stuff because we've got clean wine, and some of the stuff that's going on is not giving you good, honest advice, and your WineShark is here to combat it. Joe's asking about where's WineShark merch. Very good question. I had some stuff on sale a long time ago. I've been meaning to spend some time putting together some logos for the current stuff that'll be available on something like Teespring or something like that. Just a logo shirt, but I've had this thing in mind for my Free Your Mind and Your Glass Will Follow t-shirt that I need to get put out. So I need to work with one of my designers to help bring forth the iconography that I wish this to have. So that'll be something I want to look at. I don't think you need a t-shirt with my face on it. I don't think that's the merch that would sell. That'd be a whole nother story. The shark, maybe. I mean, Dave, I know you would. I know that's got to be you who's answering for Dave and Mary rather than Mary, but exactly. Put my silly mug on a shirt with a shark. I mean, I said maybe I get my shark hat shirt, but just for you. All right, for you, we've been friends for 30 years. I'll gladly get you a shirt for you, Mr. Joe. Good stuff. So, all right. So we're getting close to time. Any other questions anybody's got other than the questions of getting my face on a t-shirt or getting your face on a t-shirt? Maybe that should be another thing we can do. We can put your face next to my face on a t-shirt. Yeah, good one. So, in the comments when this thing gets posted, you guys come back other than the chat, of course. We said you guys want to post stuff for posterity. Go ahead and throw a comment down links. How can this WineShark serve you better? What do you guys need? What are your question marks? What do you think? I mean, even if it's topics that we've already covered, how do they need to be recycled? What needs to be on the reminder list? I'm all about it. The cork taint thumbnail on a t-shirt. The one with me holding up the smelly cork? Okay, I might be able to manage that one. So, but yeah, put in those comments how we can serve you, what it is that we can help shape your wine world and be of use to you guys. I mean, remember that each one of you is out there on your own personal wine journey, and hopefully you're dealing with this on a pretty common basis. But that's that point where whether you're trying to break out of a rut and find something new, or that you're just trying to break in and find something interesting, I'm here to help out. So I will be seeing you guys in that next week. And if you guys like what we're doing, hit that like button down below, hit the subscribe button, and get notified when we do new content. We're live every Wednesday here at 6 p.m., and then we do shows as well on Fridays. So I also encourage you to share with a wine-loving friend. If you guys think the stuff that we've got, they'd learn. The wine shows like this, have interesting topics on Wednesdays, but also short, much more consumable bites on the YouTube channel proper. So go ahead and share the channel with them there. And check us out on Facebook and over at Instagram. But if you really like what we're doing and want to help us support us, the Patreon is a great way to do so. There's multiple levels of membership. You get access to private content, specifically all of the wine tastings we do on Friday. The videos are archived there, so you can go back and check out any of the topics that we've had and go rewatch the shows. It's got show notes so that you can see all the wines that we've got, all the tasting notes, all the research that I've done to help prepare for the show. They're great sources of wine education in an unbiased and really just education first way. Not here to sell you any wine, just make you fall in love with it. So go check out the exclusive content on Patreon. And until next time, guys, I really appreciate your comments, your questions, and all of your support and love. You guys help keep this WineShark swimming in the right direction. So until next time, guys, cheers. And scene. No, scening? Scene? No, maybe we're scening. Here we go. We're not good.